welcome to my channel. As we gear up for the 2025-2026 season that starts in about a month, I thought I would go over some players who disappointed us last season, and I'll give my thoughts on if I think that they'll bounce back or if this is going to be a trend and they just fall off a cliff. Maybe not fall off a cliff, but just like slowly deteriorate in their skill and ability to produce. I'm going to go over 10 players. So without further ado, let's get into my first player. My first player is Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks. I have talked about him a few times on this channel, and I believe that he will bounce back. He will have a better season. Yesterday, the Canucks had their golf charity tournament thing, and in all the interviews I was seeing from Pettersson, he looked happy, he looked content, and he didn't seem like there was any sort of mental blocks he was going over. And also pair that with some quotes that came out a few weeks ago about how he wants to seek revenge. I believe that he has the fire in him, and I believe that he's healthy and happy, and he will be able to get back to a consistent point totals and also show us why he's being paid $11.5 million now. So I believe that Pettersson will bounce back. My next player, or not really a player, a goalie, Jeremy Swayman. Now, last season wasn't the greatest start for him. He didn't really go through training camp, and he didn't really go through preseason. He was on a contract holdout, and I think that messed him up and the team up a little bit, and so that's why I'm not going to blame Jeremy Swayman for why the Boston Bruins underperformed and kind of sucked last year, but he was causing drama in the locker room and in his contract negotiations, and so I think he will be better this year with training camp and preseason. However, I think it's still kind of a slippery slope. He was in the Four Nations. He was invited to the Team USA Olympic camp, and so I think that a little bit of the Olympics will force him or really push him to be good, because who doesn't want to represent their country at the Olympics? Next, Chris Kreider. New York, kind of like Boston, had some not overly high expectations, but they won the President's Trophy the year prior, and so there was the expectation that they were going to go to the playoffs and that they may win a round, but then everything fell out from underneath them, and Chris Kreider underperformed, and now he's on the Ducks, and I don't think he's going to be better than he was last year. I think his age is starting to show. I believe that he's just not where he once was, and so I don't really see him being able to climb his way out of like the hole he's in. And so unfortunately, I don't really see Chris Kreider like proving people that last season was a fluke. And plus, on an Anaheim team that isn't, they're kind of in a gray area right now, because like they showed progress last year and they have great young players. However, they did trade some young players. I think that Anaheim's going to be better, but there's not going to be good enough where players on their teams will have like career high years. Maybe aside from like Mason McTavish and Leo Carlsson, but who knows, McTavish maybe won't be on the team anymore, so you never know. And yeah, so I don't necessarily see Chris Kreider bouncing back or having a particularly great season. Next, Elias Lindholm of the Boston Bruins. Same boat as Jeremy Swayman. He was pretty good for the Canucks in their playoff run in the 2023-24 season, and he got paid handsomely by the Boston Bruins. Him and Nikita Zadorov, who both navigated from Vancouver to Boston last offseason. However, I don't think that Lindholm is going to be better. I think that he's on the older side, and I think that Boston as a whole is just not going to be as great. I think the Boston dynasty of like dominance in the regular season at least is over, and that they should probably start looking at some mock drafts for Gavin McKenna this upcoming season. So I don't see him really being better, unfortunately. Next, Jonathan Marchessault, who was one of the big free agent signings that the Predators made last offseason, and just did not. I mean, the whole Predators team disappointed. They disappointed in their results. They disappointed in like some of their players' producing power, and also Marchessault, he's old. Big trend throughout this list is that there's a lot of old guys, and I think that it may be time to like not be like the star player on your team. And so I don't see Jonathan Marchessault bouncing back or having a better season. I see that with a lot of Nashville. Same with Steven Stamkos. I don't see him bouncing back either. And so unfortunately, I think the Predators are probably in like the most difficult spot, and so yeah, we'll have to see what happens with them, but I don't see Jonathan Marchessault or Steven Stamkos bouncing back, because those were two of Nashville's big free agent signings last season, and they disappointed hard. Next, Kirby Dach. I have talked about him on this channel a few times. Same thing with Elias Pettersson. I think that he will have a better season than he did last season. However, I think that he's on a time crunch. It's a contract year. He's been injured a lot. He's missed a lot of hockey. And so from looking at what he was doing last season and how he was slowly getting his feet under him, and unfortunately he did get injured again, but hopefully all of his injuries are nice and healthy. He's been skating in Brassard. We don't really know how he is like in the health department, because there was a time this off season where people were saying like, oh, he's not going to be ready for home opener, and then people are like, oh yeah, he is. And then there was like some quotes from Kent Hughes, I think, and then yeah, so he's a big question mark. However, I think that he will have a consistent season, and he will be able to put up some numbers in order to secure his next contract. Next, Trevor Zegras. Same situation as Kirby Dach. However, he has been traded to the Philadelphia Flyers from Anaheim, and I think that Trevor Zegras just needed a change of scenery. He's been dogged on hard in the media for the way he plays, for his attitude, for everything underneath the sun. And so I think that with a change of scenery, with a new head coach, with a new system, he's going to be playing with Matvei Michkov. He's going to have maybe Jet Luchenko, depending on how he does in training camp. But he's going to be reunited with his buddy, Jamie Drysdale. And I think that this will be a better season for him. And from the sounds of it, he's fully healthy, which is a good thing. And I think that he will be able to have a relatively healthy season, maybe have a few games here and there where he's like rested or not playing, but I see him being able to finally have a season where people are like, okay, change of scenery was a good idea, and he's not being restricted, because in Anaheim he was being restricted heavily, and he's an offensive player. He is someone who's creative, and when you stifle someone's creativity, they don't necessarily perform or are able to function in a way that is normal, and so they end up being hit for that. So I do believe that Trevor Zegras will have a bounce back year. Lastly, another goalie, Thatcher Demko. Big theme throughout this whole thing is injuries and kind of old age. Thatcher Demko was injured majority of last season. He went from being nominated for the Vezina to being like out of the top 15 goalies in the league. And once again, as it sounds, he is healthy and he will be ready to go. And he has signed a new contract, so he is locked up in Vancouver for the next 3 years, I do believe. I think it's Lankinen, his backup, who's on the 5-year deal. But I do believe that he will be able to take control of that starter position again. But I hope that what the Canucks do is have it 50-50. Because Kevin Lankinen showed us last season that he can be the starter, and he is good with a lot of games. And if we have Thatcher Demko who can like kind of ease his way back a little bit, having it 50-50 would be good, just to take some load off of him. And so I think that with a 50-50 system, he will be able to get back to that Vezina caliber that we all saw 2 seasons ago. And so that is my reasonings for all of my bounce back players that I think that will or will not bounce back. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and let me know, do you think I'm crazy or do you agree that these players will bounce back? Make sure you like the video and subscribe to let YouTube know that you like these kind of videos, and I will see you in the next one.